Hello everyone, today I want to talk about different checks that we can place on slash commands. So whether this be a cooldown that we can place on slash command, a specific permission check, a role check, or even create your own check. I'm going to be showing you how to place these different checks on a slash command. So let's go ahead and get started. So heading over to the documentation. Here in the documentation, let's look into what actually, we're going to be using today. So we're going to be looking at app commands or app_commands.checks. You click on this right here, you can kind of read about it, but basically it's a list of predicates. If you don't know what predicates is, it's not a huge deal because we won't actually be dealing with like creating our own. You can, but it works the same way if you just create a function which returns true or false. And that's the essential of what that is. But this checks can, if you read about it, it takes an interaction parameter that indicate whether the command callback should be executed. If an exception is necessary to be thrown to signal failure, then one inherited from app command error should be used, and that's just if all else fails and check failure is thrown. But app command error, if we go over to that, it explains a little bit, but basically if you scroll down, we can check for any one of these errors happening. So we can check for command invoke error, and you can read about each of them. Transformer error, translation error, check failure, no private message. These are the ones that we're going to be using right here. So like if they're missing a role, if they're missing any of these roles, and that'll be a list of roles. If they're missing a certain permission, this is probably what most people are going to be using. Or if you want to check if the bot is missing a permission. So if there's some function that a command needs to run and the bot needs a certain permission to run it, you'd use this. And then this is what we'll be using to have the command handler for the cooldown mapping that we'll create. And then there's so many different errors that you can check for, but basically, yeah, that's it. So the checks, let's go over to Visual Studio Code and we can look at the actual checks command. So this is just a basic command that we have here. And if we go over to Discord, we can see we can just run /test and it just sends back. Oh, I don't think I started the bot. Hold on. Okay, there we go. Now if we run /test, all it says is worked. And so this will represent that the command works, and then we'll handle different checks, cooldowns, stuff like that. So if we go back here, let's start with cooldowns. Cooldowns are very simple. What we can do is go to the command header and we can place right under here. First, make sure you have app commands imported, and we want to do app_commands.checks. This is what we're looking at in the documentation, and this is what we're just reading. Dots, and you can see everything that it has. So bot has permissions, we'll check if a bot has a permission. Cooldown, we'll create a cooldown. Dynamic cooldown, you can read about it. It's a little bit different from cooldown. It adds some more functionality if you know what you're doing. Has any role, we'll check for any role. Has permissions or has role, and this is all on the user that's running it. This is the only one that actually checks on the bot. So let's just start with cooldown. Let's go down to cooldown. You can kind of read about it here. And yeah, so let's go ahead and type .cooldown. And so the first parameter you can see is rate, per, and then key. We're only going to be dealing with rate and per. Key has some more functionality, but rate and per is mostly what you guys are going to be using. So rate is how many times this person or the certain user can run the command in the per time frame, if that makes sense. So for example, if I were to write 1 and then for the per I write 5.0, which is 5 seconds because it takes to float. So what this is saying is I can, or any user can run this command one time every 5 seconds. If I wanted it to be 3 times every 5 seconds, then I could do that. So that means in a 5-second span, so from the first time I run the command, 5 seconds from then I can only run it 3 times. Now, why changing the rate might be useful. Let's say you want a command to only be run 2 times every day by a user. You can run 2 and then 400, I believe is how many seconds are in a day. And so this means that a user can only run this command 2 times every day. So, or if you want it just once a day. So if like, for example, you have like an economy bot and you want someone to collect like a daily reward, this is what you would use. Or in my opinion, I don't know if there's better stuff to use, but this is just what I'm thinking is applicable to this. The app commands.check.cooldown, and you run it once every day, and you can change this however you want. For this example, I'm just going to do once every 5 seconds, and then let's go ahead and restart it. And this is per user too, so like my cooldown won't interfere with someone else's cooldown, if that makes sense. So let's go back here and we can run /test. The first time it'll work, but if we run it within 5 seconds, you see it just won't work. And if we go back here to the console, you can see it says discord.appcommands.errors, command on cooldown, and it says you are on cooldown, try again, and that's how many seconds left until we can run it again. So instead of just throwing this application did not respond in the Discord channel, we obviously want to have some type of error handler so we can send that back to the user. So in Visual Studio Code, we can create this by doing @ and then the name of the command. So the name is test, and you can see right there it takes the command, and you go .error, and then you're going to do async def on test error. You can call it whatever you want, but I'm just going to call it on test error, or you can do like test underscore error. And then it's going to take in two things. It's going to take in the interaction. Obviously you'll need that. And we're just going to type into that as discord.interaction. And then also it's going to take the error, of course. And this is going to be typed into as app underscore commands dot, I think it's app command error. There we go. And then now you can do whatever you want. So this will catch all errors at the moment. So what we can do just simply is say awaits interaction.response.send message, and then you can send the string of the error. Let's do contents equals string of the error, and then we want to send this as an ephemeral message. So this will respond back with an error, and this will work for any error. So not just cooldown, but this is the one that we're having the ability to check for right now. So if we go back and we run /test and test again, you can see it's now sending what used to be in the console. It's saying you are on cooldown, try again in 3.5 seconds. And now we can run it again. And you can see if I do it a couple times, this time actually is going down. I sent them too fast, but yeah, you can see it went from 3.6 to 2.7. It's actually going down. So it is actually working. So that's basic cooldowns. And oh, I guess I could go ahead and show you the multiple times. So let's do 3 times every 15 seconds. So now, if we go back, we should be able to run it 3 times. 1, 2, 3 before getting the error. Okay, the 3rd time worked. And now, see, it says you are on cooldown, try again in 10 seconds. I notice this is 10 seconds. That's because that's 5 seconds from the first time I ran the command. So when I first run a command, and as you see, if I run it right now, okay, so it went back to it. But now the 15-second timer started right now. And yeah, so that's basically how it works. The only thing that I would recommend adding to this, as we get more and more errors or more checks and cooldowns, you don't want to just send, well, you can leave it like this is fine, but it's good practice to actually catch each error specifically so you can respond to it accordingly. Like let's say in this cooldown command, when I say I want to format this message differently, I want to send as an embed. So maybe I want to grab like, you know, the amount of seconds left, and I want to convert it into a format that's 23 hours, X minutes, X seconds. I want to like change the format of it, or just put it in embed, whatever you want to do to it. Well, you're not gonna be able to do that to every error, if that makes sense. You're only gonna be able to do it to the cooldown errors. So we want to catch that error specifically. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna say if is instance, and then is instance, you can see takes in, it'll be the actual object. Well, first it'll take in the specific error, and then what that error is. So if we remember going back to the documentation, we're going to catch the specific error. So if I find it, yeah, so we're going to catch the exception of discord.appcommands.command on cooldown, and we can just throw that right here. So discord.appcommands.command on cooldown, and so this code under here will only run if the error matches this error right here. And then I can just say else if it's some other error. We can just say, sorry, we can just send the regular error, but if it's a cooldown error, we can format it differently maybe. We can say failed, you can only run this command 3 times every 15 seconds, and then put the normal error, just like that. And obviously you can format this way better. I'm just showing a demonstration for this. If I do /test, I forgot I have it on 3 times. 1, 2, 3, and the 4th time I run it, you see now it'll say what I added because it is that specific error. But if for some reason we had another error, like let's just I'm trying to think of some other error that we can throw in here. Let's try to send a division by 0. I don't know. Let's try to send 5 divided by 0. That should throw a different error, hopefully. And we'll just send this error down here. So if I do /test now, as you can see, it's throwing a different error. It's not adding this message because it's not that specific error, if that makes sense. So yeah, I think that's basically it for cooldowns. Let's just throw this back, get rid of the cooldown, and now let's talk about specific permissions. So we're gonna leave this error catcher handler thing down here, and for like the different types of checks that we add, we'll just add them onto here. But for up here, let's do a couple different permission handlers. So the first one that we can do is let's do some just permissions. So let's do at app commands.checks, and then now we're going to do has permissions. So this is going to run on the user. So we want to check if the person running this command has the permission of manage messages is equal to true. So we want to check if the person running the command can manage if they have that permission enabled for them. And if not, we're going to come down here and we're going to say, now we're going to say elif is instance error discord, discord.app commands dot, what is it? Missing permissions dot missing permissions. And then we'll say failed. Well, I guess the error message will probably say it already, but we'll say failed. You don't have the proper permissions. And we can leave this error for now just to see what it says. But like the purpose of catching a specific error is so one, you know exactly what the error is, and you're not just saying, oh, I would like, throwing back a response for any error. But also, if you want to, you can get rid of this and actually format your own message that comes back. And then I'm just going to put that else just so make sure we catch everything. I think it's important to always have an error handler, or else you'll have situations where you get this interaction failed. And if you're deploying to like a server, or like even deploying the actual bot for people to invite, and someone gets this interaction failed, it just looks bad. It looks like you coded something wrong, which you most likely did, but you want to have some type of error handler that tells them what's going on rather than just this interaction failed. So yeah, so now I was going to check if I have managed messages true. So if I do test, it'll say worked every time because I have that permission. But let's check if we have managed messages false. Kind of a strange permission check, but for this situation, I'm gonna have managed messages no matter what because I'm the owner of the server. But so if I run /test, now it says failed, you don't have the proper permissions, and this is the specific error that Discord actually returns back, which honestly is formatted pretty well already by itself. You're missing managed permissions, manage messages permissions to run this command. So honestly, I don't need this. This is already quite nice, but if you want to change it, you have that option too. So that's the has permissions, and then obviously the bot underscore has permissions will be the same thing, just checking if the bot has a certain permissions. And then yeah, I think the rest is pretty self-explanatory. You guys can kind of figure it out yourself. So you have has any role, has role. So has role, it'll actually take in, if I show right here, it'll take in a specific item as either an integer or a string. So you can read right here, if a string is specified, you must give the exact name of this role, including caps and spelling. If an integer is specified, you must give the exact ID of the role. So if you want to do has role, you would enter, the ID of the role, and it'll automatically fetch it and check it. Or you can enter the string, like I want to check if someone has the admin role, it'll check if they have that role. And then also, I guess I should also go over the has any role, which is, you can see, whoops, it takes in items, which can either be a list or whatever. So I can throw in a list here, and I can check if they have the admin role, the moderator role, and so this will work if they have any of these roles in this list. And if they don't have any of them, then it'll throw the error down here of missing any role. It'll throw this error. So yeah, that's all of the checks. The only other thing I want to point out is that you can also do your own check. So let's say I don't like any of these pre-made checks and I want to actually create my own specific check. So up here, I can just create a function called my check self we would need interaction as discord.interaction. And then this has to be that predicate that we're talking about. If you want to create a predicate here, you can, but that's not necessary. And then you'd remove interaction and bring it down here. But if you don't worry about that, I would recommend just doing a return true or false because it's simpler and works essentially the same way, just a tiny bit different. But anyway, if you want me to go over predicates, I can. But for this, we're just gonna do a regular check. So let's say I want to check if the person, like, only I can run the command. So I'm going to say if interaction.user.id is equal to, I'm going to grab my user ID really quick, is equal to that, then we're going to return true. But if they're not that, then we're going to return false. So this is only oh, sorry, not self. I'm so used to writing self because I'm used to working in cogs, but so this is only going to return true if it's my ID. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to say at appcommands.check, and you see it takes that predicate. So we're going to throw in my check. And I think that should be good. I don't think we have to pass in interaction. I could be wrong. I'm actually not sure. I can't remember off the top of my head. Let's go ahead and see. I guess we'll find out. I think that's fine, but we'll see. /test. Okay, the command worked, which means the check passed. So yeah, I guess it did work. What's a check that I would fail? I guess we can check if my top role is admin, because my top role is not admin. So we can say if interaction.user.top_role.name is equal to admin, return true, return false. So I only want to do this if the person's top role is an admin. Otherwise, it's going to throw some error, and I'm not sure which error, but we can figure it out from the message that it sends. So now if I run /test, you can see it throws back this error, the check function for command test failed. So it won't actually give you the specific error because you're simply returning true or false, so it doesn't have a built-in error handler for itself like all these other ones do. So that's why it's probably better to leave it to the pre-made ones. But if you want to build your own, it is possible. And yeah, I do have some of those in my commands, and it does work nicely. So yeah, hopefully that shows you guys enough how to deal with command permissions and command handlers. Error handlers, cooldowns. If you want to add cooldowns, there's a bunch of different things that you can do. And yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, ask them down below. In the last video, at the very end of the last video, I showed you guys how to manage specific commands for players and roles. Sorry, not players, members and roles and channels. So if you want to restrict commands to only be run certain channels, if you want to restrict them to only certain roles, members, whatever, you can do that. I showed it in the very last bit, like the last couple minutes of the last video. So if that's something you're interested in, go check that out as well. And the thing that's good about that is it simply doesn't show the command at all. So it's not like I see the command and I'm gonna run, it's gonna give me an error. It's gonna simply just not show up, like the command doesn't exist, which is pretty nice. So yeah, that's pretty much it. If you have any questions, ask them down below. Like I said, if you want to be and part of the community, I do have a Discord server down below which you can join. That has, a lot of, I'll be active there. If you have any questions, you can ask them there. If you have any questions about your bot, or just simple code in general and you need help, let me know and I can help you out there. And yeah, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Peace out.